This is a real issue, ladies and gentlemen. He lived in a Muslim dictatorship when basically only Muslims were allowed to go to government schools. It was a Muslim madrasa. And I'm sorry, why is the first black guy that gets in the position of power to really run for president in a serious fashion Barack Obama? I could care less. Again, I have no guilt. I'm a young guy. I don't care what color you are. I'm not going to play into that. I hear all these Obamanoid cultists. I'm not for McCain. The point is that you're called a conspiracy theorist if you talk about what is admitted here. This guy is covering a lot of stuff up. And the evidence is he was really born in Kenya. And then Jerome Corsi tries to fly over there with a best-selling book about it, investigative reporter. And he gets grabbed, gets nabbed. And then the Annenberg Foundation's blocking a release of the things he did there. It just goes on and on and on. And I think that's why Wall Street likes Obama, is because they'll have this guy fully compromised. He can also sell the left on a lot of the police state agendas that are coming. Going back to Attorney Phil Berg, former Deputy Attorney General in Pennsylvania, who I've known for about 5 years, great guy investigating this, a Democrat himself. Phil, continue.
Yeah, I just was mentioning Dan Quayle for a second because when he misspelled the word potato, no one ever let it down. And Obama, it seems whatever he does, everyone just says it's fine. I loved about 2 months ago when he went to the state of Oregon, he said, I'm now at my 57th state, and they wouldn't let me go to Alaska or Hawaii. I didn't know we had 59 states in this country.
I mean, I thought the 50th state was Alaska, or is it Hawaii?
Yeah.
I know there's only 50. I know that.
Well, he's at 59. The reason I say that is if any other candidate said it, it would have been all over the news. But whatever he says, it's like he gets a
Well, I've watched him on C-SPAN when he's actually giving a speech or a talk. If it isn't a teleprompter, he's bumbling around.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? And I'm not going after him for that reason. I'm going after him for one reason. There's nothing more important than our U.S. Constitution. That's why they just made the film the other day in front of Independence Hall where it was founded. And he has to respect the Constitution. And if he won't respect the Constitution, he's not going to respect anything else, and we have real trouble because world leaders know he's not qualified.
Now, you have a court case. Tell folks the minutia of this, what you're demanding, what he's supposed to produce, and what the court is doing.
Sure. Excuse me. I filed suit in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. The suit was filed back on August 21st. Obama and the Democratic National Committee were served officially on September 4th, but on August 22nd, they received fax copies of the complaint, so they're well aware of it. First of all, I must say this, that it's really outrageous that the Democratic National Committee is joining in with Obama on the next few steps to block everything. I'll tell you in a minute, because the Democratic National Committee has, in my opinion, a different role than Obama. The Democratic National Committee has a responsibility to all Democrats to come forth and make sure that a qualified candidate is presented. And if they didn't know anything about this before my lawsuit, they sure knew about it with the lawsuit, and they had an obligation to go to Obama and say, what's going on here? Because if you don't belong as a candidate here, then, then at this point, we got a substitute. We have to
and by the way, these questions have been around for about a year. I mean, it's not like they just popped up yesterday.
Well, great point because you said that. And the reason I think that's a great point, Alex, is this, that it's been around for about a year. So what happens in June of 2008, very significant, listen carefully, your listeners. In June 2008, the Obama campaign, to offset these rumors and say everything's straight, they put on their own website. I didn't put it there. Alex didn't put it on there. Obama put it on his own campaign website, a certification of live birth from Hawaii, indicating he was born in Hawaii. The problem with that document is, and we had our experts look at it, and it's on our site, obamacrimes.com, is that it's a forgery. It's a document that has been altered. So if he really had a birth certificate from Hawaii, why didn't you put up a birth certificate, not a forged document? That's why I've asked.
Let's be clear, though. It's a certificate of live birth that appears to be altered. Why not produce the birth certificate?
Correct. And I think the reason they can't produce a birth certificate is because they don't have a birth certificate. This is very simple. All of your listeners, when you go for a passport, when you go for a driver's license, you must produce your birth certificate. It's not like we're asking for something special. We're not asking for a Social Security number. We're asking for his birth certificate.
No, I went to renew my passport last year, and I had to have the original birth certificate.
Right. Someone called me about an hour ago and said, I just want to tell you, I went to get my passport, and I've been carrying a certification of live birth around for 40 years. I went to use it for my passport, and they said, sorry, no good. You need your birth certificate.
And by the way, that's another issue. You have tried, and others have tried, to get his passport records to show when he was in Kenya, right around that time, as he'd be traveling on his mother's passport. They're blocking that. I mean, again, if they've got, why not just release it?
Well, I like they're not releasing because they don't have. So in the court case that was filed, we filed the case. They had till September 24th to file an answer or some other motion. Well, on the last day to file, they filed a joint motion, Obama and the DNC, a motion to dismiss. They waited to the last day saying, I don't have standing and there's no proper relief that I'm requesting. We normally would have 14 days to respond to that. The judge's secretary called and said, Mr. Berg, could you respond in 5 days? We did. We responded 5 days on September 29th, and that's what's frustrating now because it's 2 weeks ago. We submitted to the judge our opposition to their motion to dismiss. So now
they're trying to run the clock down. Now, I know people in other states are saying they're filing their own investigations. Any word on that?
I know a number of people have asked us, and the lawsuits which people are thinking about and we're even thinking about is to file against the Secretary of State of the various states. I happen to be in Pennsylvania. I just sent a letter to the Secretary of State asking for documentation, and I was told it's a privilege, they can't give it to me. But because if we sue the Secretary of State saying you don't have a qualified candidate, and only you need suits maybe in 6-7 states if the judge doesn't rule properly in my case, and he's taken off the ballot in any of like 6 major states, it's all over for.
Well, I mean, what if the clock gets run down, and then a week after the election we find out he's really a foreigner?
Well, then we can go on November 4th. You're not really elected president. It goes.
You get sworn in January.
No. There's something in between called the Electoral College.
Yes.
So we could bring a challenge to the Electoral College. We will continue to pursue this case. That's why on our website we're asking for contributions and if people can help us out.
But you know what's going to happen either way? There's going to be rioting if it comes out he's a foreigner.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. If there's a riot, people are saying, oh, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be riots. If there's any riots out there, there shouldn't be any riots, and hopefully all the leaders in this country, black and white and Hispanic, whoever, get together and say, you know what, stop. No rioting, because the only one at fault here is Obama himself.
Well, justice be done, may the heavens fall.
Well, Obama should be held responsible for this. And we're going to do everything to make sure that the responsibility is to the right person, because there's no reason. People have called me, how come you're doing this? You're a Republican. I say, sorry, I'm a Democrat all my life. Then they've accused me now of being a racist. And I say,
that's a joke.
Well, my response to that is very simply, I happen to be Jewish, but also I happen to be a paid-up life member of the NAACP. So what's your next question? The only one at fault here is who? Is Barack Obama and his staff.
Look, he's acting very sneaky, very suspicious. It should be produced right now. And there should be major media doing investigative reports, ObamaCrimes.com. Phil, let us check in with you once a week in the next 3 weeks as this develops and unfolds, okay?
That's wonderful.
Phil Berg, thank you so much for the time.
My pleasure.
There he goes. All right, folks, there goes Phil Berg. We'll take your calls, get into the economy, also all the incredible police state news on the other side. I'm Alex Jones. This is the GCN Radio Network in association with Emmis Communications.